Hey, everybody, this is Michael Wiley, and I'm live at NCGOP Studios and here for your weekly version of our Chairman's Chat. And tonight we are very excited to be joined by E.C. Sykes, who is running for Secretary of State. E.C., thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, Mike, it's a pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
Excellent. Hey, so wanted to give you a chance first just to introduce yourself to everybody and tell them who you're from, or who you are, where you're from, and why you're running for office.
Sure, fantastic. Love to do that. So for those new to us, first, it was a pleasure to have the primary, to meet so many great people across the state. I was born in Durham, and so in Watts Hospital, which is now the School of Math and Science that's there, a graduate of North Carolina State. I'm an engineer, where I met my wife, and we got a chance to get started with our business experience that was there. We then had an opportunity to move from the engineering side into the business side. That moved, Michael, into getting a chance to run a small manufacturing firm north of Raleigh in Youngsville. And so I had an opportunity to do that. It grew really well. We were recognized actually twice for one of the fastest growing companies in North Carolina. The owners sold that to a Fortune 500. We got a chance to work through a Fortune 500. Oh, excuse me, that shouldn't happen. Work through a Fortune 500 and then to be CEO of two other companies in addition to that. I've got 2 children that were great kids and 3 grandchildren. So it's we've been, of course, lifelong North Carolinians, been here for 10 generations that we're here. And so it's a pleasure. We were actually raised in the rural part of the state. And so I don't even know this, we earned half of my first car. Dad bought half, I bought the other half by priming tobacco in North Carolina. We did that sometimes with a tractor, sometimes with a mule. Almost embarrassed to say we go back that far, but North Carolina's been home for me, my family, and their family. So it's great to be part of North Carolina.
Excellent. Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of folks have heard about you running for Secretary of State. And one of the questions I always get is, so what does the Secretary of State do? What is the role of the office, and what ideas do you have in terms of bringing some new thoughts there?
Sure. And that's a frequent question. The Secretary of State hasn't impacted the lives of many people. And so what does this office do? And why do I care? I mean, look, the Secretary of State is actually one of the most complex, probably the second most complex office that we have of our statewide offices. Attorney General has a lot of activities. You should be thinking about the Secretary of State being at that level of complexity. Look, it's got an administrative section of it that takes care of a lot of the state's business on that side. So the regulating of lobbyists and lots of other licensings that are required is there. This issue that we have with commissioning illegal aliens, that notary issue, that's in the Secretary of State's office, and that's part of that administrative side is there. And they regulate the company activities. And so the regular routine regulation of companies fall underneath that. That's a simplified version of the regulation side. But in addition to that, and an important part that really needs to be emphasized is the role of the Secretary of State's office is to support the economic growth of North Carolina. Look, there's no other statewide elected office that focuses on growth, on economic growth, on job growth, on taking care of getting our people in the best possible financial situation that they can be in. And that strategic activities was one thing that particularly interests me because of my business background. And it's a reason that we all should be interested in their role. And look, we're coming out of this COVID situation. It's been tough on businesses. It's been tough on people that's there. And so just imagine a person with some business experience now that gets an opportunity to take on the Secretary of State's role could just benefit everyone. And so we look forward to helping in that capacity.
Well, I tell you what, Secretary of State, the current Secretary of State, Elaine Marshall, has been in office for 24 years. Man, that's swampy. And, kind of when you look at how long she's been there, there's a real argument to be made that we need new blood, we need new ideas, and I certainly think that we need somebody to come in from the business sector. You know, when you look at somebody who's been in office that long, it's really hard for you to say that they're going to bring any new ideas or you know, new thoughts to the job. How do you set yourself up against, you know, somebody who's been in office that long, with you coming into it from, you know, being an outsider, being a businessman, and God forbid we would actually have somebody with a business background regulating North Carolina businesses?
Yeah, and you're right. 24 years. I mean, look, when our government was structured, the designers of how our government should work never intended for them to be career politicians. And she's just breaking that pattern. This is not healthy. It's not healthy for our state. It's not healthy for our nation. This has got to stop, right? And the way we have that stop is for the people in North Carolina to hold her accountable for what she's done, and in this case, not done, to help the people in North Carolina. And so, you know, it's you know, it has been a long time. There needs to be change. There needs to be fresh ideas. There needs to be just common sense business practices brought to the office that drives businesses, right? We need transparency, like we haven't ever had transparency before. Michael, when I was an officer of a Fortune 500 company, every quarter I had to stand up and address the shareholders and to talk to them about what I did and what I was going to do. And at the end of that, I had to sign a letter, and I filed it. And if it wasn't truthful, there were consequences like jail, right? How come we have less transparency and accountability in our state offices than we require of our public companies? It's illogical. So one thing I want to do is I want to bring that level of transparency to this office. And then two, we need freshness, right? We do need fresh ideas. We need business processes and methods to solve the problems here in the Secretary of State's office. A part of that, though, is not getting bigger, it's getting smaller. But companies in North Carolina would do well if government would get out of their way. And one of the things we want to do is drive this decision-making and ideas, just not top down, but go to the people of North Carolina, understand what their needs are, and satisfy those needs. Put the methods and processes in place to enable them to do what they already know they need to do. So I grew some companies quickly, right? I grew them from 2 million to 15 and all variety of sizes, one from 600 million to 4 billion. And they all were done because I listened to my customers. They know what they need. If you can listen and then provide the services that they need, they'll reward you with it. And I think the same is true for North Carolina. I think the people in North Carolina know what they need, and they're looking for somebody that'll come along with them and to help them be successful. And so we look forward to using the proven business practices that we've done in the past to make our government smaller, to make it more efficient, to make it more transparent, and to better serve the people in North Carolina.
Yeah, I think that's a really huge point. You know, when you look at President Trump, there has never been a more pro-business president than President Trump. And one of the things that I think really sets him apart is he has a relentless focus on small businesses, and has worked really hard, you know, through the first 3 years of his term to be able to set a regulatory environment and a tax environment that's going to help small businesses grow, because they are the chief job creators here, you know, in North Carolina, but frankly, all across the country for it. So, you know, when you look at his approach to it, how do you see that setting you up in terms of ideas and a focus on the small businesses that you're regulating? And I love how you said, you know, you're going to kind of clear it out, but in terms of regulatory relief and just making sure that you're not being a huge burden on those small businesses, how do you look at what President Trump's done and what you would do with your slot?
Well, you know, he's done a tremendous job for our country. And a really nice thing is when you're out there creating jobs, when you're helping small businesses, those are not R's and D's. Those are people, right? And so we're not out trying to help a party when we create jobs. We're trying to help the people of North Carolina when we create these jobs. And so it's economic growth for all. And I think the president's done a very good job with that. He's created jobs across the board, right? We haven't focused on a particular group of people. It's about how do we enable entrepreneurs? How do we enable small businesses? Look, 78% The jobs that we have in North Carolina are small businesses. And so if we're going to focus on opportunity to grow here, we need to focus on the majority of those jobs are at with the small companies. Small companies, though, cannot take the regulatory burden that we often put, the paperwork that we put on them, the new set of rules, another great idea that we come up with that they need to go then add to the amount of overhead structure that we already had. So one of the things that President Trump did, he said, look, for every new rule, he was going to take away rules, right? He took away more than what he brought in. And the ones he brought in were better and more common sense, but even still, he lessened the load on the small businesses with there. They don't have these large overhead structures to fill all this paperwork into play, go through all these games. So we need to mimic him. We need to take a lesson out of his playbook in this case. And look, I'm a first-time candidate. I'm a businessman. He was a first-time candidate. I mean, I don't sit in that same sphere. And we do have some commonalities. I understand what he's done. I think it applies to North Carolina. We should be able to take the same principles that he's found that's worked across our nation and really focus them here for the people of North Carolina.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I think it's great that you're able to see the value in what he's been doing on a national level and be able to bring that down and have that conversation at a state level. So, you know, one of the questions that I always ask every one of our candidates on the chairman's chats is, you know, how did you meet your spouse? And so, you know, you have an absolutely wonderful wife in Susan. You know, she's been around doing a lot of the events with you prior to the curtain coming down, and a lot of people really brighten up when they see her. So how did you get lucky enough to meet her and get her to marry you?
Yeah, lucky is right. So I married up. I'm fortunate in that area. We normally travel together. We try to be together in all the events that we can. But you know what's really lucky for me is that when there's a time that I need to be in two places at the same time, I've got Susan, right? And Susan can go. She does better than I do often at these events. I mean, the problem I have is when I go somewhere that she went, is all I can do is to get a tie, right? I can't improve the situation that I got there. Look, Susan and I met at North Carolina State. I was a senior, she was a freshman that was there. And so, but you know how that story normally goes, so let me switch it. She was a little more aggressive in making introductions than I did at that point, but there was a courtyard there and we met back there in the courtyard. Let me share something else with you that not many people know. So we had our first child. She was at my parents' house filling out the baby book, which has a bunch of questions. And one of the questions was, how did your parents meet? So she asked my mother and father, hey, so, we don't know. How did you guys meet? Where'd you meet at? And they met at a 4-H convention at North Carolina State at the Student Center. And so unbeknownst to us, my parents met at the same place that we met, even though they never went to college. North Carolina State Student Center has been particularly special for us. And so we love it there.
That is, and I'll tell you this, I think that as I've talked to candidates who are running, statewide, North Carolina is a huge state. I mean, we've got 100 counties. Heck, I think we probably got 3 different time zones here at times. And that there's a really long haul in between. What's it like for you to be able to have her with you as you're traveling around and to be able to bounce ideas off of her and just kind of have somebody there who, it can be a sounding board for ideas and for you and just kind of read crowds? And what's that like to be able to travel with her when you're moving around?
Yeah, no, I mean, what an asset, right? You got a confidant, somebody that is really, truly interested in your best interest. That it's not gone up, you don't have to have any concerns about side games or other activities. And so we get clean feedback. She's got very high standards. And so, we get critiqued through that process. We've grown and stretched through that. But what a lovely thing to have is somebody who loves you that much that can then come alongside of you and share insights with you. She also, when we're there, she forms relationships with people. So she's able to broaden the number of people that I can touch. And so when we get a chance to travel together, we can have the conversation I talked to, did you know about? And so we get a better understanding, a more balanced understanding, I think, of the people that we meet. And look, North Carolina is a big state. And with that comes different cultures, right? And so last week, we were close to Murphy. at it. You know, we just got finished an event in Wilmington. We're going to be up in Watauga this coming weekend. And so, you know, we cover a lot of ground, and with those grounds come different cultures inside of North Carolina. And we get a chance to kind of reflect on those, to understand the needs of the people, the interests of the people, what makes that group successful, how can we best serve them. And so a person that you can talk to you know, openly about those things is just invaluable.
Yeah, I could not agree more. You know, I want to go back to kind of the Secretary of State role. You know, a lot of people think that when you're in one of these Council of State positions, you know, you've got your building, you've got your job, and you stay to it. But you know, I believe politics is a team sport, and so you know we've got you know on the statewide level, you know, we've got Dan Forrest running for governor, we've got Mark Robinson running for lieutenant governor, we've got frankly one of the strongest slates in the Council of State candidates that we've ever had here at the North Carolina Republican Party. You know, and you would really be part of Dan Forrest's cabinet. You know, when you look at the small business angles that you were talking about earlier, you talk about using the Secretary of State's office to help recruit businesses, to help regulate businesses and help grow the economy. You know, what do you see as your opportunity as a member of the Council of State to work with a Governor Forrest, with Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, you know, coming out of this election cycle? How do you see positioning yourself to be an advisor for those guys on these types of business issues, given your background and where you're coming from?
Yeah, the Council of State has a really important role. You know, it comes along to advise and support the agenda of the governor, but it also is designed to limit his authority, right? Which is one of the things we see not working particularly well right now in that Council of State. And so what we want to do with Dan Forrest is to be able to put people around him so that we can move his agenda forward and to complement those business focuses that are going to be there. So I get an opportunity to be an advocate for the businesses of North Carolina to help them get their agenda set and move through the governor's office that's there. And we look forward to being there. We look forward to advocating, to be an advisor, to be a counselor on that side through the experiences that I've had. But Michael, in addition to that, one of the things that the Secretary of State's office has not done well now is to propose legislation to help drive improvement. So there's some things you can do without that. There's some things you need to do with the legislative body. And so in order to get that started, last week we announced the endorsement of Representative Jimmy Dixon, head of ag for us, right? You'll see another one come out this week where we do another one. And I'm already laying the relationships in place that are going to be necessary when required for us to drive the legislation through to improve the business environment here in North Carolina, which would then be in supportive of Dan's vision of what do we want to do here as we take our state forward. So I think it's a great compliment. You got two business guys. Dan's been a business guy. I've been a business guy. We got different business experience, but we come together to work for the people of North Carolina. It's a pretty good package.
Well, I think it's terribly important. And I think right now, you know, your Council of State is being completely ignored by Governor Cooper. And I think, frankly, you know, he is ignoring all of small business. I think, frankly, he's declared war on small business here in North Carolina by, you know, with the lockdown that he's got. He has completely refused to have any transparency or give anybody any certainty whatsoever in terms of when we're going to be able to lift his lockdown. And the impact that we're seeing on small businesses all across the state is absolutely catastrophic. Whether you're talking about bars, you're talking about gyms. I can tell you my gym closed down and they're gone. So I got to go find a new gym once the curtain comes back up. But we've got just business after business after business who are down on their knees. They need to be able to get certainty. They need transparency from the governor's office. You know, how do you, as a Secretary of State, how do you help in those situations? What are some of the things that you can do to try and help these companies that are on their knees to be able to get back up and open their doors again?
Yeah. I mean, look, we got it. We're in a really tough spot. And one of the things, and you know, COVID's impacted all our lives. It's impacted lots of businesses, unfortunately. And I just want to remind all of us, look, we started this because we had a concern, a very valid concern, that we were going to exceed the capacity of our medical facilities to take care of people. And so we reacted to that, and we overreacted. We didn't know that. We haven't turned these knobs before, and so that's okay. But we found out that we pulled back further than was necessary in order for us to achieve that objective. And in businesses, we have a principle called fail fast. That is, when you go out and you're making decisions on limited data and you don't get it exactly right, quickly adjust yourself to get yourself where you need to be. In our case, we have been incredibly sluggish about adjusting where we needed to be in order to take care of people and businesses. Right? As a result of that, this would never work in a business environment. It's shameful as to what's occurred here. And I feel for the people and the companies that have either gone out of business or really suffered. And there's been other suffering in addition to just the financial suffering of the mental health issues and other things that go there. So I think one of the important pieces here is we've got to be more responsive. We got to be faster on our feet. We need to think like business people would think and respond that like they would when it comes to government, if we're going to, as we regulate them.
Yeah, and I got to say, the fact that Governor Cooper has been in office for 33 years now kind of goes back to the same thing we were talking about with Elaine Marshall in terms of once you've been in office that long, you really have absolutely no connection with the private sector. You can't even begin to fathom what they're hearing. And when you hide out in your bunker over there at the governor's mansion and refuse to meet with the council of state, refuse to listen to him, refuse to meet and listen to anybody, frankly, that decision-making circle just gets tighter and tighter. And frankly, is one of the main reasons I think that we're in this paralysis right now, that as a state, we just can't get him to kind of move out from it. You mentioned earlier, Elaine Marshall, and you mentioned an issue set that we've heard a lot about throughout this election cycle, which is that she has been certifying illegal aliens as notary publics. Talk just a second about, how audacious that is and how wrong that is, and, kind of what steps you would take to make sure that does not happen on your watch.
Yeah, look, there's some statutes of what the qualifications are for a notary public, right? They're really clear. And the paperwork being submitted doesn't comply with those statutes. It's really clear. This is not a gray zone. They've created gray areas where gray areas don't exist. Look, people that are not legally here, that have already broken the law, should not be the people that we trust the integrity to validating our documents with. It's one of those leftist things that the logic is beyond my ability to be able to comprehend. And so I guess maybe the engineering logic in me just it's a wall on this one. But and that's one example of some thinking there that's not in the best interest of our state. It needs to quickly get fixed. It's easy to fix, right? Let's stop it. We're going to have to unwind some things. There needs to be a graceful way that we unwind some things, and so that we don't end up costing more cost for our state as a result of that. But we just need to get ourselves back to a really clear execution of the law as it's written. Let's just respect the law, right?
Yeah, I think that's really important when you look at it. So, when you were running in your primary, and congratulations on your strong win coming through that primary, you blew a lot of people away by having Ted Cruz, of all people, come into North Carolina and campaign for you. How in the world did you pull that off?
Yeah. Well, it's a pleasure to have the senator as a friend. In the 2016 presidential election, early on, there were some things that happened in our nation. And one of those is we had a Supreme Court decision that overrode the vote of millions of Americans. I'd already been an executive officer of Fortune 500. I'd been CEO of a couple of companies. And I was in a spot when that happened that I had some flexibility. And Michael, it was just offensive to me, right? That we were fundamentally changing what our government structure is when judges begin to rule and make those type of definitions. And so out of that says, man, I don't know what one person can do, but I know this one person is going to do all he can do to go. And the senator had recently declared his candidacy. I got to counsel my friends, and they said, look, if there's one man that you want to go support, that's the man. So I drove about 3.5 hours on Mondays to volunteer at his office. I've got a hotel room. We worked our 14 hours a day. We drove home Friday nights. After about 3 weeks of being there, I got to be his executive director of faith and religious liberty for him. And so we worked tirelessly to bring people of faith and to fight for our religious liberties that were there. And so that's important too for me, because when I'm running now for office, I'm not a politician. Look, I've been fighting for these social causes, whether it's been pregnancy life centers, whether it's been religious liberty or others. That's who I am. And I'm representing that now through this process of running. So the center and I formed a relationship during that process. It was really quite good. I'm pleased. I've started to, I've got a plaque that says MVP of that campaign stuff. I kidded people. I sleep with it, under my pillow at night, right beside my 9/11. But I'm kidding about the plaque, right? And so, but we had a good time with the senator. He was gracious to me in remembering that, and he came to help a friend, and I'm very appreciative.
Well, speaking of campaigns, you're running a pretty big race here, and you're running against a woman who's been in office for 24 years and certainly has all the ability to direct, swamp critters to her support, and got people across the state who are familiar with her. But you are in such a unique position. I think that America craves change right now. I think that when we saw President Trump come onto the scene in 2015 and 16, it was all about change. It was about draining the swamp. It was about bringing fresh ideas and business ideas. And you are uniquely capable of bringing that same approach to the Secretary of State's office. So for all of our viewers here on the Chairman's Chat, what can they do to plug in with your campaign and to be able to help you make sure that we get this important seat here in November?
Well, and you're right about Elaine. Look, she's run a lot of times. So the benefit for me on that says, one is people do not like career politicians. And so she's already got a weakness going into this piece. She's also left a trail. And so you can look back and look at her races and analyze and see how she's done. And amazingly, her name recognition is not actually that strong. She wins because she buys the votes at the last 3 weeks of the election. And so we've putting in a process statewide where we put a grassroots structure in place and a communication process in place that is clearly going to be able to make a change in this office. And so people can help, right? It's an important way. One is everybody asks for funding, and I'm going to ask too, right? But here's the deal. Look, if everybody that had voted for me had given $5, I'd be spending all my time on grassroots. And so, and what that means, even the $5 means to us, is that you're with us, right? Which is encouraging, and in addition to the fact that it helps us get us to our goal. And so I encourage everyone to spend some time there and with their friends, and just to, what you can is appreciated. To make you feel better, I donated the first year salary to this campaign already in this process. And so I've put in the first year salary. I'm in, right? Not only with my time and talent, I'm not getting a pay raise going into this role, but we need other people to come along beside of us. Now, the second thing you can do in that area is you can volunteer your time and effort. We have put in a campaign structure. It's all 100 counties. It's like a business person would put in. It's highly structured and highly focused. It is based upon communication with our chairman that we're putting up in every county. It is focused on the strengths of that county. It's not one across the state. We're running the state like we like to run it, like our government at a local level, right? We're using local people to help us get us there. Send an email to us, info@EC4NC. We'll get you plugged in. You can go to our website as well. There's a place to sign up there for support. That would greatly help. Also on that website, EC4NC, it's a place to sign up for our prayer team. We get together every Monday at 12 o'clock. We cherish people's prayers. Susan, my pastor from college, leads us in that area. So join us in that area. And the final thing is, look, this campaign is about reaching people that haven't been reached before. We got to get outside of the echo chamber. And so send me 10 contacts that I can persuade that this is an important office. Email them to info@EC4NC. Help us expand our network in that area. We'll go do the work, of communicating with them, let them know how important this office is.
Well, I got to tell you, I am really excited for the race that you run already, the race that you are going to be running for, you know, the rest of the 5 months. I can't believe we're actually only 5 months out from election cycle. So, you know, I think that we've got, you know, a great opportunity to knock off the ultimate swamp creature here in the Council of State. And we really appreciate you coming on to the Chairman's Chat tonight, and look forward to seeing you out on the campaign trail. Thanks so much, EC.
Thank you. Blesses you and all that attended. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Okay.